that I have to go through an entire fucking work tree to do the one task I set out to do.
Oh, do you have it?
I probably, but I don't want to self-diagnose, but
I self-diagnosed myself.
I have crazy ADHD. Like I have a different kind than a lot, like my brothers. My brothers are like pacing around the room and they're like, I can't do anything in school and I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna binge watch all the Star Wars episodes instead of doing my homework.
Right.
But I'm like, mine's like a superpower.
You like hyper focus. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I get my main problem is starting. Once I start, I will sit there and I work on it for 20 hours until it's done.
I feel like I'm the same way. Like I'll be trying to work on something and I literally cannot focus whatsoever. I'll be looking out the window. I'll be checking my phone. But as soon as I'm able to hone in, I'm actually able to do work.
Yeah, that's me, but only if my interests align.
Actually, that's a good point too. Only if I want to do it, then I'll do it.
I'm like a serial procrastinator. I'm the best at it.
Oh yeah, like I it's like down to a science, like how late I can be on a deadline at this point. It was like I have to write 5 pages. I got about a week to do it. So
yeah, I can write probably 5 pages in like 2, maybe 1 day.
Let's see, it's due Monday at 8 a.m. I'll start Sunday, maybe Monday at 4 a.m.
I'll start Sunday at 5:32 p.m. I'll have just enough time.
It's too real.
Like last semester, I actually finished a paper at 11:59 on the due date.
Oh my
insane.
God.
Did it allow you to submit still?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Like right on the last second. Well, I mean, I could have submitted, but it would have flagged me as late.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it was like a minute late, my professors all love me. So they're like,
dude, there have been so many times where I'm like, I think that I've submitted something and I never click submit and I just go off of it. Dude, it's like, oh, my career's fucking over. Thank you.
Something I do, and I'm not really sure why I do it, but something I do is I get like 95% of the way done. Like I get it all done, and then I just have to submit it, and I'm like, yeah, it's all good. Yeah, I don't need
I'll submit it like 1 minute before, I'll be fine. I can just procrastinate a little bit longer.
Or like I'll be like, I can do this extra thing to make this a little bit better, but I'll do it later. And then 10 minutes before it's due, I'll be like, I'm not doing it.
Like trying to, you just got to do the conclusion. It's like, maybe later.
Yeah. I literally had this presentation that I had to do last semester for my modeling class. And I literally made the presentation like the hour before class started. And I wrapped that shit up. I knew the paper. I had read the paper like multiple times. So like I was able to kind of just whip it up in Google Slides, but it was just like, going from that and then straight to presenting, like it was pretty
all
good.
Fresh too, though.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like doing prep work for something, like getting your outline done and shit, that gives me too much confidence. Like it really does. Because like I know exactly how to write this fucking paper. I could do it all right now, 20 minutes.
So it allows you to be like, I can wait until the fucking absolute latest.
Absolutely. Because like once I get an assignment and it's like, I know it's like a long haul kind of thing. I will do all the prep work instantly and then never follow up on it.
For my senior design, my first semester, I wasn't really well versed in the project I was actually doing yet because we don't start the project until second semester. So like doing my presentation for the proposal, I was literally like, for the difference between the proposal that I did for the project and the final project are completely different. And I had like no idea what I was talking about during the proposal. But then after doing like the final report, and then finishing the project and everything, it's like, I didn't need shit. I didn't have to do the final report. I could just, it's like, I knew everything about that. I didn't even have to make like a slideshow to help me.
You also spend like countless hours in that shit too.
Yeah. It's so funny because working with my group, it would be like, all right, we're working for the first hour. We'll communicate and stuff. And then by like 11 o'clock, everyone has stopped talking. We have like 3 hours of just radio silence. Everyone's just working on their respective parts. And everyone's just going like, what the fuck, dude? Why isn't this working? Every like 10 minutes or so.
That's always the best part of group projects.
The late nights.
I only ever once didn't do all of the work in college in a group project.
In a group project, yeah.
I almost always go, all right, I'm going to do the project. You guys just have to do this, and that's it. And that's how it goes.
What do you think you do that?
Why do you think I did that?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Like, why do you feel the need to overload
Why
yourself?
do you want to butt into other people's work?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, why do you
trust anyone, Cole?
why do you burden yourself with the responsibilities of your team? And
I'll tell you why it's a good idea now. All right, so I only ever did that. I only ever didn't do that once, and it was
you had one bad experience.
Yeah, no, and the thing about it is, it was like I always knew this could have been a problem, but it happened my last semester. So
Okay. So the worst time to have
the worst time was the last time it ever happened. So essentially, my partner's like, all right, I got this. I will do all the work for you. You can just vibe out because it's your last semester. And I'm like, hell yeah. You know what? Change your pace. So he did it. And then we give presentations. And then my professor was like, so you didn't really do that good. And then so I was like, all right, whatever. And then so what I did was I just did a whole second project the next weekend, essentially. So I did our group did pretty much double everyone else's, and she gave us an A eventually. But I was like,
after
can
the
we
third or fourth project, we got an A.
Yeah.
You failed because of the presentation?
We didn't fail. She was just like, yeah, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and you should have did this.
Like factual information?
No, actually, because she wanted us to do more. She literally said to me, I have a reputation at the college.
Mr. Big Shot.
Yeah, it sucks bad. Don't my kind of going into a tangent. I used to underperform at track because I didn't want the actual.
As you should. So that way, when you get a raise, you work even worse.
Yeah. So if you underperform, a lot of times you can just scoot past responsibility to an extent.
Absolutely.
So
dude, I am a
Under
leech.
promise, then you don't have to overperform.
Yeah, exactly.
After living my life as a
Promise,
parasite.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But
All
yeah,
good.
so when you actually excel, my professor looked me straight in the eye. She said, I expected you to do more. And I was like, all right.
Called you out.
That sucks then. Because it's like you could have just skated across.
I could have just did it.
Well, then why did you put me in a fucking team?
Honestly. Yeah, what the fuck is that? They should have put you with people who they knew were going to, do more work.
When I was doing
I mean, we chose groups, and it was a friend of mine,
okay.
and he was like, I'll do it for you. And I was like, you know what? I trust you.
just this once.
Still friends with him?
I am, yeah. He's a good guy.
Regrettably.
But
I mean, that happens.
Never let him live that one down.
But yeah,
I
we
remember.
friend.
we basically did 2 projects instead of my second project was more than everyone else did. So, and whatever, right?
You passed.
I passed. I have flying colors, but
A's get degrades.
yeah,
A's get degrades.
yeah. So you guys hear that new Kendrick song?
Great segue, Cole.
Yeah. I did hear it. Matter of fact, I did hear that new.
I actually heard it recently.
specifics.
Yeah. No,
What's your take on it, Alex?
Just a preface, first of all, he says the F slur multiple times in
Yeah.
a certain song called Auntie Diaries.
my take on the album is that overall I enjoyed the album. It's
Just on the song.
Oh
Your
yeah,
take on
okay.
the song.
My take on the song. I enjoyed it. I mean, I guess I kind of don't like that the flow of Kendrick in this album, but that's just I really dig the instrumental, and his wordplay is really nice, and it's just it's just kind of okay. It's a solid 3 out of 5.
How do you feel about the F slur being thrown around?
Like I said, I did as a bisexual male. I don't fucking I'm also disconnected from the community. You can call me whatever the fuck you want. But the thing is, if you swing at me first, physical confrontation, I will attempt to kill you. So it's
So if Kendrick swung on you, that's when you kill him.
yeah. But I mean, I will try.
So if you were Chris Rock at the Oscars,
It calls you the F slur.
Will Smith might be dead at this very moment.
Decapitate Will on stage at the Oscars. It'd be pretty incredible. I don't personally, for me, I don't think it's that big of a deal that he said it.
Yeah, no, because also he establishes his own context within the song too, where he's establishing that it's in the identity of a growth mindset that this itself is just a social commentary, essentially.
Yeah, he's saying because there's a lot of very passive homophobia in the Black community and hip hop and stuff like that. And so I think he's addressing that and he's making people feel uncomfortable, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You know, like art
you
is supposed to push you a little bit.
You got to rip off the Band-Aid sometimes.
I wouldn't even say like hip hop has a passive homophobia. I think it's a very active one.
By passive, I meant like it's very ingrained or something.
Oh, yeah,
it's very normalized. Maybe that's what I should.
That's a better word. Yeah,
I think it's like degrading women. That's like very common thing.
Well, I'm okay with that.
That's just fun. You know, that's just good fun. You know, guys.
That's all okay. Well, that's like literally
Am I right, men?
That's like a hypocritical statement, like in and of itself within the hip hop community, because they talk about a lot of stuff that is like both degrading to a certain type of people, but also it's like Kendrick comes up with a song like this.
Yeah, but I feel also that those rappers, because they always kind of like paint it in just like kind of like a holier than thou, I'm in the higher position kind of shit, where it's like
it's all flaunting wealth and everything.
For the most part, it is like a flaunt of power or just what you have over people.
So I haven't heard this whole new Kendrick album, but at least on his last one, the on Humble, that song, like he talked a lot about like in general the hip hop community like focusing on like highly manufactured like female looks, like the very photoshopped, stretch marks, all that kind of shit.
The last song too.
It is. And so I think like Kendrick has a history of analyzing society in his songs and like, digging deep into like the shit that affects his community and
Kendrick's
him and all
a little bit of a Sigma male.
He is Sigma. He disappeared for like 5 years.
He just comes back as like social commentary.
Said the fucking F slur 9 times.
He literally came back, dropped an album that says the F slur 9 times in one song.
Nobody's gonna cancel him over it.
Yeah, and then he's in Ghana right now on vacation.
Is he actually?
Yeah, he left.
He dropped it and left.
Literally.
He moonwalked the fuck out.
I think that's hilarious. Honestly, the best thing to do, because if I was him in that position and I knew what I was dropping and I look at my phone and like all the people tweeting at me, I'd be like, fuck this. I would go to Ghana there anyways. If I'm not already
I drop
there.
it in Ghana, actually. Then I go to France.
Yeah, he plays his song in a club. Everyone's like, I don't know the lyrics, but this is a great song.
I know some of the lyrics.
I heard a couple things in there that
I know some of those words.
I think like a lot of the people on Twitter that were getting angry.
Is Ghana homophobic? Huh? Is Ghana homophobic?
The country
homophobic. Are they afraid of
I mean, I think they're pretty like. There's like a lot of Christians there who are very like fundamental.
Is hobo a slur?
Hobo?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
I think
it's a little
homeless people might not like it. Yeah, it's a little disrespectful.
What if you like slap him around a little bit?
If you slap him around and call him hobo, then it's a slur.
That is a hate crime.
Yeah.
But I think it's like people just see that he said the F slur or whatever, and then they get pissed off, they get angry, they want to turn it off. But it's like the whole message of the song is that you shouldn't say the F slur. Like how he acknowledges like in the song how he baited that one white chick into like coming on stage and saying the N-word in Good Kid, Mad City. Have you seen that, Cole?
I have seen that.
And he talks about it, and then at the end, like he's like, obviously, none of us should be saying these words, or all of us should be. Like, if you want to be able to say these things, like you have to be comfortable with other people doing the same about your group.
I agree with that. I think the problem with slurs is that they elevate it. So they put when you make them these guarded words that you can't say, they give it the power.
Yeah, I feel
That's
like
what gives it that.
The thing is, like when those words are used, a lot of people often escalate the issue as well. Instead of taking like proper practice and like trying to like de-escalate, it's like, I don't know. It's like if someone calls you something that you don't enjoy, why are you trying to immediately pick a fight with them?
Yeah.
Like, instead of trying to rectify the issue at the source in the first place.
I agree.
Like, to be fair, I don't think you can really rectify a situation with like a super hardcore racist that's going to be like calling you slurs like that.
That is fair, but it also gives you plausible deniability for self-defense.
Well, no, actually,
I can shoot them then.
If you were to like beat someone up who called you the N-word, like you're going to get charged.
Oh, wait,
you know what I mean?
No, because they want to escalate it because then they want the plausible deniability for self-defense. And it's all clicking. All the pieces are in.
Like, I just think it's like I agree to an extent that like putting those words in such like a bubble that's like, never say these things. It does give it a lot of power in that like, but anybody who does utter these words, they end up getting like fucking, screamed at and shit.
Look
and
at
I'm sorry, but like uttering the word is not the same thing as like saying it to someone, at someone in a derogatory way.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree with you. And the main thing about that is that it's not my battle to fight as a straight man.
Yeah.
You know,
The
a
name
straight
of the game
white
is
man.
this podcast as we talk about issues that we aren't involved in.
Yeah. Like if I were a
That's
black
any
man, it'd be very
podcast.
different of me talking about the N word. Like I will never utter it. But
Unless.
Well, the thing is, like, I think the main point to derive from that is like we can't get mad at people being upset at that.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
that's the
I
main point.
understand.
We can
I
have
agree.
discourse about
Oh,
it,
yeah.
but we shouldn't say how other people should feel. if
We
they're upset.
ultimately do not have the final say in this matter. We are just discussing it to further its points.
I don't think anyone like individually has, even if you are like a gay black man or like,
I feel like
I
at
don't
some
think you
point
even
though,
have
someone's got to make like the executive decision. Like, wait, Obama's got to come forth.
no more saying the N word.
Actually, you know what?
Everyone gets
I've
the
had some
N-word
time to
passed.
think about it. I'm okay with the N-word.
First executive order by Barack Obama.
The N-word is okay.
Third term after Biden.
Yeah, President Biden, anyone who voted for me now has the pass.
By decree of Obama.
you get like a 99%
Obama.
approval rate.
I know.
He's got a lot of votes from the right.
He will, he'll bring together the white liberals who want to say it to rap, and then the racist Republicans who just want to call people that. You know?
Oh my god.
It's like
Holy shit, the country's unified.
Cole, what you said, it's like it's kind of like a psychology to be able to say like if we hold these words in high regard, then people want to either say it more or like either condemn it more.
It's
But
kind of
like,
become its own philosophy in its own right, where it's like, oh, we used to debate over whether or not like happiness is, you know, like, oh, physical pleasure or, you know, if it's just the
like the state of being.
Yeah, the overall state of being of like contentment or like, you know, if I have more pleasurable experiences than negative, that's hedonism. But it's become its own, like, I love fucking philosophy, and it's
Very interesting.
It's kind of crazy how that there never is ever an answer, and that pisses me off sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, they have the same exact tools as you did, except a lot of people have just devoted their lives to it.
Yeah,
That's
well, I
how
think-
everything is.
I think also it's like we live in a different context now. You know what I mean? So it's like if the Enlightenment happened today, we'd probably see much different philosophical, you know, roots or tendencies or whatever.
I feel like I feel like we're on the come up of like a new age enlightenment. I feel like we're starting to see some waves that are like hitting.
Like what?
Just like in general, the progressive movement in general itself is opening up new lines of thought. So it's creating more opportunities for people to think down those lines. And I think it's really interesting to see the way people's opinions have changed over time and how they're continuing to develop.
From my educated opinion, from
My degree opinion.
my intro to psychology 1. The main problem that I had with psychology is I really like the early stuff, like kind of up to like Descartes.
I hated the fucking wording.
Do you mean
like going
philosophy,
deeper.
not psychology?
That is the actual. I just like completely. That is two very
Truly
different.
No worries.
educated.
Move on.
educated.
What's your problem with it? Back to topic.
Yeah, we move on from that.
All right.
No slip ups.
I slipped up really bad there. Yeah, I just for whatever reason I'm dyslexic. All right. That's my,
All right, okay. I didn't say anything, man.
All right.
We're bullying a handicapped man. Right
I'm
now.
dyslexic, dude.
Welcome to the ableism podcast.
You can't use the D slur. Only me.
All these dyslexics
Whoa.
You want to fight, dude?
I'm going on Twitter.
with words, maybe, because I know you'll lose.
Oh yeah.
I'm already canceling Anthony. I'm using our Twitter.
Yeah, I just I don't know why I equated it. My grandma did the same exact thing to one of my cousins. She was a psychology major, and she said she was a philosophy major, and I was like, what is she gonna do with that? You know, is she gonna go
There's
into
no
academia?
money in that.
Yeah. Psychology is really, really changing a lot. Like we were talking
Yeah,
about
I
it
haven't
before.
kept up with the field itself, but I do like all I know are like the preconceived notions that like if you go into philosophy, if you go into fucking psychology, you're gonna live an awful life. You're gonna be living on the streets like those fucking artists. It's like, well, Damn,
Well, they don't
what
get-
if I enjoy it?
But
They don't get paid
There's
a
no,
lot.
like-
That's all.
The way-
it's kind of the reality. Sadly.
The way I keep updated with it is just my therapist tells me things about me that I know about. Like she's like, I think ADHD is really closely related to the spectrum, and I was like, that makes sense.
I kind of agree.
yeah,
It's
that
spin
makes
bars
sense.
right now.
I think psychology is really interesting
yeah.
because
Literally.
Oh no.
there's two aspects of it, right? There's one part of psychology that is the actual physiology of your brain, like the chemical makeup that can change your actual conscious experience or whatever. And then there's like another part where it's like these like Jungian or Freudian concepts where it's like more the philosophy behind psychology and like analyzing people's behaviors and where they might originate from and like those things. And I think it's really interesting to like look at those two things. But I think it's better that I think today it's getting more empirically based. I think
It's
because it's
getting
like
a lot better.
as we it's so based as we have like more methods of analysis and stuff.
Yeah. Like if 20 years ago I had what I had, I'd be fucked.
Yeah.
Essentially, I have what's called agoraphobia, which is the fear of panic
Agoraphobia?
attacks.
Oh, okay. All right.
It might be agoraphobia.
I think agoraphobia
For a second,
is like
I thought
fear of going
agoraphobia.
outside.
I thought agoraphobia was like the fear of getting aggro. Like people just like.
Yeah.
Please
It's the
be
fear of
mad at me.
agriculture,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, I
You,
have.
you actually don't like being the tank.
Yeah, so like with agoraphobia, the only real way to combat it is we didn't really even know anything about it at all like 20 years ago. I was talking to my friend who actually studies psychology and
Nice.
yeah, I got it. That's right. And he told me like he's like, yeah, you would be screwed 20 years ago because like they only recently started studying it very recently.
Yeah, they'll just give you like 600 painkillers. And
No,
call
they'll
it
just
a day.
shock your brain.
No, more
like
likely I'd just
cocaine.
kill myself in my house.
Nut shock therapy will solve your problems.
Like 50 years ago, they'd prescribe you cocaine and heroin, and they'll be
Oh
like,
yeah.
Oh, dude,
Whatever.
so pumped.
Revolver therapy.
for psychology, it's like mental illness was like essentially not a thing 50 years ago, 70 years
And also
ago.
things that weren't mental illnesses were like homosexuality. You
Yeah.
know, like,
Every morning you wake up, play Russian roulette, so that way you realize every day is a blessing.
Make your life as hard as possible so you think, wow, I can't get any worse. And then you have to be happy.
I prescribe you leeches, a lot of them.
I prescribe
do-
you suffering.
We need a bloodlet every
my
3
God.
hours.
Well, yeah, that's what old doctors used to do. They just be
Yeah.
like, yeah, here's some leeches.
And, you know, apparently there's like a real scientific basis to that. Like in
I don't know about that.
no, the bloodletting thing, because they said that.
Y'all hear about
now-
crystals?
Hang on.
One of those J.O. crystals.
Let me talk. Jack off crystal.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Okay.
No way.
Hang on. Put a pin in that. Put a pin in that.
We'll go back to it.
Okay. The fucking, I saw like a
you wait.
headline. I barely read the article, so it's probably not true. But they said that like, in terms of like microplastics and forever chemicals that exist in your blood, if you do blood donation, that's like the only way to get those things out of your body.
Like a true transfusion at that
Oh
point.
yeah, and like there's like microplastics in the bloodstream, and it's ruining the fertility of men. Apparently, that's what
I don't know about
Dude,
that.
thank
but
fucking
it
Not
might.
ruining,
Yeah.
but
I
It's
believe it would
contributing
have an
to-
effect on it, at least some sort.
It has
Finally,
something to
natural
do with-
male birth control.
Yeah, eating plastic.
yeah, it's like microwavable plastics in particular. Like if you leave a water bottle in the car and stuff like that, particularly when the mom is pregnant with the child, essentially, and then when they drink out of like a old water bottle that's been sitting in the car or microwavable dishes and things like that. I think it's the heat.
Oh, are you
And-
saying that
It'll break down the
mother who's drinking like
Yeah.
bottle with microplastics, that kid will have fertility?
Yeah,
problems?
that kid will
Okay,
have
I
fertility
see.
issues.
Oh, sick.
That might
It's
be
like
true.
sending
Yeah.
fiberglass
The-
through the blood.
And the way to actually tell is like about the fertility of the male is actually through the taint. The taint size shrinks.
I did
Yeah.
not-
Wait a second.
I got the longest gooch.
How big? How big do you know? How big?
3 inches is big, right? Yeah, huge.
Men start
pretty
getting
good.
self-conscious about their gooch length.
If you have a
You measure from the gooch, right?
I don't remember the actual the scientist behind it, but I saw it on the
And
Joe
I
Rogan
believe it.
Experience.
Well, maybe I won't believe it anymore. No, I'm kidding.
It was on a Forbes article.
It's not a Forbes article.
I should have worn my fucking Joe Rogan podcast sweatshirt.
No, you'd be sweating your
have one?
fucking balls
well,
off.
That's awesome.
I'll actually bring it out for you real quick.
Do you wear ironically?
No, he loves that.
No, he wears this sweater unironically.
He loves
Do you like Joe Rogan?
Yeah, he watches it all the fucking time.
watch it, but
I like it.
He watches the fuck out of it.
I love.
Canonically.
That is awesome. That is
It's
amazing.
Sonic and Shadow, right? Yeah, Shadow.
We've talked about
making
it.
out.
but
Yeah, I'm just giving a picture. For
The whole Rogan
I don't watch
podcast.
Joe Rogan, but
What? Why?
I do.
what do you mean why?
Are you telling me you don't religiously love the man who interviewed Superman 50 Area 51?
What?
I used to watch Joe Rogan a lot, and sometimes I'll still watch like some episodes with guests that I find interesting, but I haven't watched in a while.
Yeah, I think
I usually skip the comedians and stuff. I like if they have like a scientist on or something like that. That's usually when I do
think
it.
comedians are good.
They're okay.
But, like,
I mean, that's more like entertainment rather than
it's just
learning.
casual, yeah.
So like,
I don't know how deep Joe Rogan, like how deep he goes. Like what is the rabbit hole of Joe Rogan
Is
as
he
a person?
good podcaster?
yeah.
I would
he
have
has to be.
Well, I mean,
He has
there's
to
no.
be at some
Yeah,
point.
You don't
he's
become
like the
that successful.
biggest podcast in the entire fucking world, making multi-million dollars.
I mostly just don't like his personality, I think, for the most part.
That's fair.
I've always thought that Joe Rogan was like some sort of weird facade, but like the longer it
What
keeps
does
going,
that mean?
the
He
longer
wasn't
it keeps,
real.
yeah. I mean, like you just like he goes outside and he's just like a regular ass dude, but then like the moment anyone sees him and like makes contact with him, like the quantum flux will put him into Roganism.
He disappears. It was
Yeah.
like a sunspot. You're like, who was that?
Sunspots.
Like that was a big floater I just
blink
saw.
and he's gone.
Yeah. I watched a couple episodes when I first got into like college and stuff, but the more my particular problem was like it's like he varies on what he is talking about depending on the guest, where like he'll have something on like the left side politically, and it'll be like he'll challenge the topics. He'll have like a very good discussion with them. But when he has someone who's more right leaning, it seems like he's just like shooting the shit with them and like agreeing with everything that they're saying. He's not really refuting that much.
I don't necessarily agree with that. He's had a lot of guests on where he's just like, all right, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. But for the most part, he kind of disagrees with who he's talking to. So you see a lot of people who see a lot of perspectives. Like
Yeah, I feel like it's for the sake of furthering the discussion, like playing devil's advocate. But also, when you play devil's advocate all the time, it's hard to know what your actual like fucking beliefs are.
I will say Joe Rogan does push back on one issue that he cares very passionately about. And that's the legalization of marijuana. Anytime any conservative talks about like how weed should stay illegal, he's like, Jamie, pull up the study. Jamie, this. Like he's like going off trying to come up with all the evidence.
He's anti-vaccine too.
I don't know if he's anti-vaccine, but
he's super skeptical.
Yeah, he had some skepticism, and he was more so like, if you're healthy, you probably don't have to take it. Which it's like, I don't agree with that, but it doesn't necessarily make you an anti-vaxxer to say that.
Yeah.
It's just like
He's not explicitly anti-vaxxer.
I don't necessarily completely agree with him, but I do agree with him a lot on a lot of the vaccine stuff.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, let's segue into it.
What I said was I think it's just like what I've seen of him. He may not always do that, but
Yeah, I haven't seen all of Joe Rogan to know what Joe Rogan is about.
Yeah,
I've seen every episode.
The amount of episodes
that.
is crazy.
They're like 2,000, 3,000 or something.
Is it? Jesus Christ, dude. I could die.
I got into
Like
Joe
watching
Rogan when I was working at Bob Evans as a dish tanker. I just put headphones in. I just rocked.
I did the same
Around
thing,
what episode did you start to tune in? Like how long have you
Do
been?
you remember the first episode?
I
No,
remember
the
it was
Roganite.
somewhere in the 900s for me.
Yeah.
How long have you been a Roganite?
It's something. It
doesn't-
a Roganite.
It doesn't mean that I watched all 1,000 episodes from 900, but it's just
I skip.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like commutes and walking and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Probably going to be watching it less now that I actually work. But the main thing with the vaccines, to kind of get back into it, I mean,
segue.
because wasn't the point of this kind of
done.
debate a little bit? I mean, we could do a little bit.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I guess
Welcome to the Null Podcast.
I guess we should do the intro.
I am Zane,
I'm Anthony.
I'm Alex.
and we have a guest with us today, Cole.
I'm Cole.
Yeah,
He's a good friend of ours.
Did I do
it well?
Did I do okay?
Yeah, you're good.
say the fucking line again.
So we have a little bit of special lined up.
episode.
Anthony and Cole are going to be doing a friendly debate.
It's a
about
little
couple
bit of
topics that we've-
discourse. This is to expand upon the topics. Full disclaimer that we are not
experts.
We are not experts in this discussion at all. We just want to have a friendly discourse so that way we can expand our own fields. And the best way to do that is to have someone who doesn't have your fucking opinion.
Yeah.
You know?
Because we talk a lot about politics on the podcast in general, but it seems like it's mostly like Alex the anarchist versus like Anthony and I. Anthony and I think, have a little bit of differences in terms of like our own sectors. But
am I really anarchist?
No, it's just like
you just don't give it. You're more just if anything, you're a nihilist. Like you don't care about like institutions and like things about like that. You know?
Because they fuck them up horribly.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that you believe it.
Well, because they happen.
So just to preface, like, would you guys want to talk about like what you feel you identify with politically?
Yeah.
If you have like a term. Or,
I could kind of start. I'm mostly issue to issue for like 90% of things. I believe in a lot of things from the left and a lot of from the right, but I would say I mostly lean right libertarian. Yeah, so the right point of view is what I'm saying.
I'm if I had to give myself a label, it'd probably be like social democrat, which is like the governments of like Norway, Sweden, Finland, those sorts of things, where it's just like, you know, I believe in like broad social security nets that like can support citizens and shit like that. And I'm very progressive, like socially and to an extent economically. There, I disagree with a lot of stuff, like some like certain raises to the minimum wage or like some other like niche economic topics, but that's like, you know, that's later.
very nuanced.
Yeah.
And I'm the ignorant centrist.
the apolitical.
Our goal is to convince Alex of our side.
Whatever, Alex.
You guys have the discussion, and I'll decide which side has my vote.
Who won?
Yeah.
So just to start off, I'm gonna ask the question for you guys. I'm not going to be participating. I'm mostly just the person who asks the questions at this point, because I don't want to dogpile on anybody.
Yeah, I'll try my best to keep us on track here, but this ain't my fight.
So the first question here is the don't say gay bill / anti-groomer bill and other similar legislation a positive change?
First of all,
you updated my question. You made it good.
Oh, I
wrote that.
Wait, no way.
Well, I asked you like what the semantics of the question were, just to be as specific as possible.
Well, I wrote like a sentence that was like, don't say gay bill or something like that. You made it into an actual like, you like college essayed it.
Can I have a preliminary question of what is the don't say gay bill and what is the anti-groomer thing?
Sure.
I know I can
don't say gay bill. You're probably more well read in it,
about the anti-groomer bill.
So Ron DeSantis of Florida, which is a pretty conservative place, he put forth a bill. I think it was called like the Parental Rights and Regulations or something like that. Like that's the actual name of the bill.
Yeah.
But like people on the left like described it as the don't say gay bill. And then people on the right countered that by saying it's the anti-groomer bill. Okay. So it's just like, it's just like an advertisement.
Just having
exactly.
Titles for, okay.
And so basically what it does is it outlines like,
I'm curious on how it's the anti-groomer bill.
Well, just let me say.
Go for it.
So like it what's it called? It basically sets guidelines for what teachers can talk about in the classroom with regards to like sexual identity and gender identity with like certain age groups. So like it states that from kindergarten to third grade, you can't talk about sexuality or gender identity at all. Like they want to access completely. And then from grades 3 and beyond, it has to be age appropriate or developmentally appropriate or something like that.
So they're just trying to, I could see being put in a way of just like trying to formulate like the foundation years and then letting them go forward and then like having a healthy, upbringing of gender knowledge.
Let's just continue.
Sexuality knowledge. Okay. Go for it.
And so basically it, and then there's another provision that basically states like schools can't withhold information about like a student having a certain like mental health or identity crisis. So like if a student feels like they're gay and they confide in their teacher, that teacher has to bring the information to the parent or else they will be reprimanded. It does state in the bill that there is some discretion involved when like if it's possible, if the school staff think it's possible that it'll lead to abuse, then the information can be withheld. But that's a very subjective line and it's very hard to determine. whether or not a kid would be abused. But so basically, that's like the facts of the bill.
Okay.
I think we can agree with that, unless you have something else to add.
Pretty much. I'll just start with where I agree and disagree with the bill, because I don't agree with all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly after third grade, what does age appropriate mean?
I don't know. It's very loose language for that particular reason.
Yeah.
But I think
There's gonna be some court case later on.
honestly, I think kindergarten through third grade, having the like absence of talking about sexuality or gender identity entirely, I think is very stupid. And it kind of like, because like, think about it like this, right? Did you have like, what's it called? Do you remember first grade?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like in my first grade class, like we had a teacher, Miss Bell, shout out Miss Bell. And she would talk about like, like, oh, I'm going on a date or something, or like my husband proposed to me, or like these sorts of things, like developments in their life that can like lead to discussion or like things like that. And, if you think that's okay, like, why is it not okay for like a gay teacher to do the same thing, or a trans or whatever teacher to do the same thing in those respects?
I think the root, were you going to finish?
I was just going to say like, no. Continue.
What a threatening statement. Are you gonna finish?
I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. No, I think I cut you off.
I'm just making sure.
Because like he paused a little bit. I went to go talk, and I was okay. So I think the root of it is almost like a free speech issue. But the point about free speech, and I'm really pro free speech, right?
Sure.
But the point of free speech is that you have the option to say whatever you want. You can also not listen to whoever you don't want to. Now with teachers, you are obligated to be there. I mean, like you could probably change teachers, you could probably change schools, but not everyone has those. Not everyone can do that. Some people live in small rural towns where there's like one first grade teacher that's ever like
that teaches everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. And perhaps she's like, I don't know, some ultra conservative that says, I don't know, gay, like an ultra conservative can say, hey, I don't want this person to be gay. So I'm going to say, like, I'm not going to name drop them, but you guys know what teacher I'm talking about, the ultra conservative teacher.
Yeah.
You guys had it together, right?
All right,
the Cisco class.
Okay.
Yeah, you know. All right.
Yeah,
I'm not going to name drop them, but they told Ace, do you remember Ace?
Yep.
That you are just a confused homosexual.
Yeah. Ace was a trans...
Female to male.
Yeah, female to male.
Yeah. You are just a confused homosexual, and homosexuality is wrong.
Yeah.
Now, I think the bill does right to protect both people. I mean, obviously that was like high school. So, I mean, that'd be a little different. Like
it's a little bit out of the scope.
But if we have that, you could easily have that at the third grade level, second grade level. I don't think they should be talking about it. I think they should be teaching math, science, whatever.
Yeah. So do you think that it's important? So, okay, how about this? If I were to teach a class and say I'm gay and I have a husband and I have a picture of me and my husband on our desk, right? Do you think that's okay?
Oh, that's probably disallowed at the, is that even disallowed at the, with this law? I don't think so.
Well, it could be, right? Because if that picture sparks a discussion and then that discussion leads to some grade or talk or whatever, then that could obviously be punishable if it happens from kindergarten to third grade. And obviously, like your kindergarten to third grade is 4 years old to 9 years old. At 8, 9, like that age, you're definitely able to understand the concept of homosexuality or maybe transgenderism to a level, I'm not saying like we have to go into detail about how to have gay sex and like all this other shit, but it's like just to make sure that it's known and that like people know that like, oh, hey, Timmy has 2 moms and that's okay. It's just, it's another way of life, so I think it's just like this bill adds like I think it'll create a chilling effect for teachers who actually do want to talk about those things with their students, or students that do want to confide in their teachers about those things.
I don't think they should be talking about it pretty much at all. The problem is, I think 99% of teachers are going to be fine with it. Like they're going to be like, well, if like there's a gay teacher, for example, it'd be like, oh, I have a husband instead of a wife, and that's okay. And then they're going to move on and go to math. right? 90% of teachers are going to be like that. But the problem is those 1% of teachers that are like, all right, well, being gay is okay, or being gay is not okay. And then they're going to push their opinions on their students, essentially. So if we can't target, and most people don't like targeting ads to children, right?
Sure.
Why can't we target opinions? Like, they can't actually formulate the difference between opinion and facts at that age. We have actual like evidence to support this, right? So how would you know that that's not just correct, right? If you have a super left or super right wing teacher that is telling these students these particular values, whatever their values may be.
So I think that like I think that there's recourse for that without this bill. You know what I mean? Because like I think the bill, the addition of this bill adds like it casts the net wider than like what it originally was. Like, because the original net would have captured those teachers, I think, who are like spouting off like a bunch of irrelevant shit to the curriculum about their life or about this or that. You know, you can bring that to the principal and talk about like how, you know, this is a bad learning environment or something like that. And I think that's entirely possible without this bill. However, I think the bill creates like a broader generalization of it that allows people to just kind of like abuse that fact. Because like, you know, if we're talking really honestly, like this is a conservative government with a conservative population that's enacting these laws. They are specifically aiming those at like queer teachers or like gay teachers and things like that. You know, I don't, for part of me feels, and this is big feelings moment, but I feel like if a teacher were to reference God or something, like this population wouldn't care. You know, they wouldn't approach, or they wouldn't seek out, you know, a punishment for that teacher if they were talking about God in some context.
Well, my main thing is if I had children and if and when I have children, right, I would want them to be learning science, math, history, all that stuff. That's all I want them to be learning at that age. Maybe once they can learn the difference between fact and opinion, above those ages, which again, I don't know what age appropriate means. It's probably some super biased, like conservative bill, but whatever. I don't want them learning anything besides those major subjects. My one friend, I actually talked to him, and he's brought up kind of the point that you're bringing up, in that it is a conservative law, right? And if a person has a portrait of maybe their wife on there and they're straight, right? They're going to be not punished, but maybe if they have their husband and they're gay, then they might be punished. You know, it's going to be probably more bias. And I think I agree with that. But if the law is enforced as written, I think it's good. But
it never does. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing about laws, is that like the way that they're written, it allows for interpretation and application. Sorry, Alex.
No, I've just been super curious about the study, because I've heard nothing about the study of like children, the fact and opinion stuff. So can you just give me like some of the really rough details?
I can give you really rough details. It's been a while, but basically kids can't determine the difference between fact and opinion until a certain age. I don't know what that age is. I just know that they can't.
Okay.
That's what's protected behind like the age appropriate. But at that point, it's like, we don't know.
And that's why it's illegal now for Google to target ads at children.
Okay.
That's because they can't tell that they're being sold to. They need the mental fortitude to be able to say, I am being targeted with this ad.
I'm being scammed.
Or this person is trying to sell me something. What they're saying isn't necessarily true. And that's why we reinforce them not to go into vans with strangers. Okay. And that's why, if you remember in like second and first grade, you had like wants and needs. Okay. Yeah.
Well, thank you for clarifying.
A question. So do you don't think that from kindergarten to third grade that children should receive any like sex ed, essentially?
I mean, this is such a complicated issue, because I think 99% of children don't need it at that age. But that 1%.
At 9 years old?
At 9 years old? No. Did you have the talk before 9?
No, but I was watching porn.
Were you?
Yeah.
I was too.
Yeah, don't even ask me, were you?
I wasn't given I was given the talk, I felt shockingly early, because my older brother showed me porn when I was like 5.
Yeah.
So it's like,
That's fucked up.
It's like,
But like, because the thing is that a lot of because also I think we're forgetting that sex ed doesn't just mean sex, like in terms of fucking or masturbating or watching porn or any of that.
Yeah.
It also has to deal with like health, like proper hygiene and like knowing like about drugs and the effect of those drugs and why you shouldn't take random fucking pills that you find on the street and shit like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that information is very important for kids. And even an extent of certain sexual info can be as well, you know, like the just acknowledging the existence of gay or trans people, you know, versus like, you know, acknowledging their existence doesn't mean like you got to be trans or like everyone's trans nowadays or like some shit like that, like trying to push it on people.
did you go to Safety Town as a kid?
No, I didn't.
Well, okay. Well, that was a thing I went to, was called Safety Town. It was like a 3 or 4 day course, right? Where they said, don't get in the car with strangers. Oh, don't take these pills unless your mom gives them to you. Oh, don't do this, do that. I think that is, I thought it was like from the state. I guess it wasn't. I don't know.
I never did that.
So it's just like a safety boot camp for kids.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
I think something like that would be better. We never talked about sex or anything like that in there. It was just like pills. Don't get in the car with strangers. They showed us how to use the traffic lights, things like that. Like, be very careful.
But in a similar vein, we were when we were working for the school, we also had something called Alice training, which is just like a general basic like safety training thing. It wasn't like its own like designated course, but it was kind of like a supplemental thing that you have to take in order to do the other thing.
I think that was like a corporate thing. Like it's like some corporate regulation.
Yeah, that's fair. But it kind of like fits in the same vein. Yeah. I'm just trying to build some parallels.
So wait, when did your mom give you the talk?
My mom gave me the talk.
Okay.
Yes.
How old were you?
Like 6, but I saw porn at 5, so it was way young.
Yeah.
Like I should have, like realistically, like 12.
Was the talk effective?
She told me oh, penis goes in the vagina, and I was like, all right, cool.
So let me ask you something like this: if you have a kid, right, and he asks you, mom or daddy, why is mommy got a big bump in her belly? Like, what are you gonna say to him? Are you gonna spin a story about a stork delivering a baby, or like, or would you actually explain like the biological process that could go into this?
How old are they?
Let's say 6 years old.
6 years old. So the main thing that my mom told me before the talk was that when a man and a woman love each other very much, God eventually gives them a baby. That's what they said to me. And I was like, all right. I got really confused at like 4 or 5. I was like, so
he couldn't tell
does
fact
God,
from opinion,
do you have a choice? Yeah, I could not. So I was like, does God just like give you one, or can you choose? Like, how like does he just like
you're putting all the sliders up? It's
like do you have a choice? Is this like, are you having a baby against your will? Like,
blink twice if you're having
blink
one
twice, mom.
Oh God!
I know Jeffrey wasn't your choice. Jeffrey's my younger brother. All right.
Shout out Jeffrey.
Shout out Jeffrey. All right. So I think it's so, I don't have children, right? So it's so nuanced. I would say I'd probably do this like until they are given the talk. I don't think I would tell them how exactly it works. And the reason is because I don't want, when I saw porn way too young, right? I attempted to like reenact it, but I would like all the girls in my class. I literally told a girl in my class, you know, you don't have a penis, right? And I was like, all right. like that's just something I thought, like, just because I thought all girls had penises when I was like 5, 4, you know. There's a point where you're way too young to really grasp fully these things. But then again, it's better for their development to like tell them as many facts as you can. Yeah,
exactly.
And not baby them.
And so not make these stories, you know what I mean? Because I don't know, that's something, if I were to have a kid, like, obviously I'm not going to tell them, I fucked the shit out of your mom and I cream pied her pussy and we're having a fucking kid, bitch. Like, unless I'm not going to tell her that shit. Unless it's Call of Duty. But like, you know, I would say something like, me and your mom love each other very much and we tried a very long time to do this and we created a new life, like
Yeah.
that or something like that. Very basic preliminary knowledge. It doesn't need to go into the detail. You can add more detail as you go. Like it's a lot like mathematics, like the way that you build upon mathematics and you gain an understanding of like the whole body of math in general. You start out adding 2 + 2, you start looking at like very basic graphs and they use things that aren't quite right, but they allow you to understand the concept to build that base to understand further concepts, and I think that's very important, especially in a culture where like the majority of parents do not talk to their kids about sex at all. You know what I mean? They're not getting any of that information from their parents.
I never got the talk.
I never did either.
Way too late.
Yeah. The talk that I got was being introduced to porn by a 6th grader when I was a 5th grader.
Damn.
Or not a 5th grader, but I was younger.
I got the talk from my father at 17.
You said you were like 9, right?
Yeah. So I think I would have been 4th grade and he was 5th grade.
Like 3rd or 5th.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think it's just like I think there are ways for the school to step in and fill that gap, just to allow for kids to have like a more well-rounded, holistic view of like sexual health and like all those things. Yeah.
Well, that's also assuming that the teacher is the perfect person to tell them.
That's not assuming that. It's saying that if a parent fails their job, right? Because I think that is a job of a parent is to educate their child about these things. If a parent fails that job, I think it is the teacher's responsibility to kind of fill in and like pad that role as much as possible, right? It's not to say that they're the best, but it's just like they are another avenue to doing that. Because like I don't know what the alternative is. If it's not parents and it's not teachers, who's going to teach them about these things?
I'd also like to add that it's the teacher's responsibility to educate without a bias. They're supposed to.
That's impossible,
obviously, but they have to work within the best interest of the kids that they're teaching. And so you have to not introduce bias in the way that you approach things. And it's obviously very hard to do, but you can still minimize the fuck out of it. So
yeah, I think this, like the 3rd grade before is the part that I'm like, this kind of minimizes it because you can't have either.
Okay.
If you just don't talk about it for that, something that they have to be at. So like some people can change schools. Like I said, some people can change teachers. I was fortunate enough to be able to change teachers, but sometimes you cannot. It's very like small towns and everything. You can, sometimes it's just like, oh, you just get, I don't know, Trump MAGA hat Jerry, right? And he's teaching your 2nd graders that being gay is bad, like you could have
and how the wisdom of God will lead them to the right path.
Or homosexuality is wrong. And and
if you don't go to church, you're
homosexual. Like that's literally what a teacher told Ace. So
do you think that we should teach kindergartners that the world is round?
Yes.
Do you think that parents who are flat earthers should be allowed to sue the school for teaching that their kids that the globe is round?
Probably not. I mean, these are like,
I'm just curious because it's like, now if we think about kindergartners and with sexuality and someone says gay people exist and that's the extent of what they say. They don't say anything about like, this is the gay lifestyle. This is how to have gay sex. They're not saying any of that. It's just that gay people exist flat out. Right. Now, do you think the school should be able to sue the parent or the teacher or the school for saying that?
It's super tough because I think just saying gay people exist is fine, right? And in a perfect world, like let's say we say we can draw these lines, right? We can say that a teacher can say gay person exists, straight people exist, move on with life, let's go to math. But that's just not the real world, right? There are these 1%. We can only move as slow as or as fast as our slowest person, right? Sometimes we have Trump MAGA hat people who are like, all right, gay people's wrong, gay is wrong. Or sometimes we'll have blue-haired intersex demi-human who's be like, all right, well, this is gay sex. I have a butt plug in right now, like shit like that. I don't think
is that really happening though?
It kind of.
Well, it's the vocal minority that often blows things out of proportion. And I feel like going forward, we should do we want to focus more on this 1% idea? Because there's always going to be that 1%. It's always going to throw off the majority, you know?
Well, I think we write legislation to protect from that 1%, because obviously like the majority of people aren't murderers, but we need laws against murder, because it's like, you know, they are this outlier that presents a very large damage to the community or whatever. However, I think that the current Don't Say Gay bill, the one that was like written up in Florida, like I said earlier, it expands that net to catch more than that 1%. Because if you were telling your students that you had a fucking butt plug in, or like how to have gay sex, any legislation that exists right now, like before the Don't Say Gay bill or whatever, like that teacher will be fired. That teacher will be fucking axed.
The way that it would, and more realistically, the way it would happen is, oh, you're feeling all these feelings. Maybe you're gay. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
that's more realistic.
So this is another question I wanted to ask. And I think you're probably right about that. Do you think that that a student should be allowed to confide in a teacher about something going on in their life, and that teacher not sharing it with the parent?
I would like to say my mom is a member of an elementary school's. She's a noon aide essentially, and she's run into multiple encounters where students come up to her confiding in her of their own sexuality, and she literally has to.
Wait, how old are the kids? Do you know?
Fuck, I think she's in charge of 4th graders. Okay. Not 100% sure though. Don't quote me on
9,
that.
10.
Yeah, but they confide in her with their like questions of their sexuality, and she literally has to keep it like 10-foot pole, just like, you need to ask your parents about this thing, because it's like she doesn't obviously want to be held responsible for any repercussions that could come about of a conversation. So it's like, how do you circumnavigate that problem where that you allow children to have the freedom to ask while also not punishing good ideas, of like it's I don't know about that.
See if you can answer that question that I asked you though.
Can you restate the question?
If you
confide in a teacher.
Yeah, right? Do the teachers have to share that information with parents, or else they'd be fired?
I think they should be forced to confide with the parents or go to a higher level. If I think they should have to be forced to confide with the parents in everything besides abuse scenarios. So if they're like, hey, I'm feeling these feelings, I really like boys instead of girls, I don't want to go to my dad. He said homosexuality is wrong, or being gay is wrong, and he said I'm evil or whatever like that. I don't want to tell him I feel these feelings. In that case,
what if
fuck whoever said that?
So what if there is no there's no proof that abuse might occur? Like, you don't know anything about the parents' like religious circumstances or whatever, or their ideological circumstances, but the student is still afraid of that happening. Right. So like they still show fear of that happening, but they've never been abused in the past. They've never been like told explicitly, like, this thing is wrong. Like the teacher has to confide those feelings.
I think telling the parents is probably the best idea. I don't think that someone who is again, it could be the only opportunity that they have,
to share anything with them,
and it could
or
be
to get like an adult role model to like help them process those feelings.
I think they should. It's super tough because we're talking about these like really
it's
hyper specific.
But that's like what the line is,
School
it's like it's finding the line of like parental rights and like how far they extend in the environment of school. I
think for the most part, unless if there's some like a potential abuse, they should tell the parents.
Isn't the whole point of having like a school counselor is that you can go to that person to confide in? Like, what is the purpose of that role then?
True.
In this context?
Do you even have counselors at
an elementary?
Yeah, I believe you do.
Yeah.
But just as an interjection, I'm going to give a 5-minute warning because we've been talking about this for 30 minutes.
Okay.
So either wrapping up statements or
Okay, yeah, I'll just wrap up then. I'm just gonna say, like, I think the bill, there's like some okay parts of it, you know, like because obviously parents deserve some knowledge about their kids and like certain mental health things that are going on, like if they're having suicidal or depressive thoughts. But I think casting this in like very hard legislation that like that specifies like LGBTQ and transgender, like that shit. I think it's really weird that it specifies that, and it kind of casts this wide net that really shouldn't be cast in terms of like what can be discussed in a school. You know,
So are you in favor of more ambiguity or more specification of the law?
For this law, it would like there exists ambiguity in the law, which is the problem, right? Because it's allowing all this discussion to happen, right? Because if they were to be more specific, you know, we might not even be having this conversation because it's like, oh, it's plainly written right here.
Yep.
This happens and this happens. But obviously legislation and like that is hard to draft because you have to consider like all the possibilities.
What does age appropriate mean at all? And who determines that and everything. But before third grade, I think it's fine. I think they shouldn't be able to talk about it because again, we can only move as fast as our slowest mover. Right. There are people like I don't know if you've ever seen the TikTok libs of TikTok. Or the Twitter, it's libs of TikTok, where like there's blue hair teachers that literally say on camera, I will indoctrinate your kids. And I was like, oh, like imagine if that's your only option for a teacher. It's like,
I get that.
Oh God.
But honestly, and like this might be like, this is another big feelings post, but I feel like a lot of those things are done as bait for conservatives.
Yeah.
Like the idea that like a teacher is going to go on TikTok and unironically say, like, I'm going to indoctrinate your kids. Like this is some cartoonish level of villainy. You know what I mean? Like
the top hat, monocle. Yeah, I get you.
Like,
but the problem is, I think like whether or not that's like too much, like that they're just going above and beyond with that. Whether or not, I think it does exist. And the opposite
there's no, for sure.
That's
and I'm not denying that it exists, but I don't think it's like to the same level as like the libs of TikTok is like presenting it as, you know.
One last closing retort, please.
That's just 1%, right?
Yeah. I would even say less than 1%.
Yeah.
But
most of them, like most likely our kids, if you have kids and if I have kids, they're not going to have to deal with us. For
final statement,
society will collapse by then.
Yeah, society's gone.
The final statement. Don't worry. Final statement.
Do you guys
society's going to collapse.
Overall, do you guys think this bill hits closer to the mark or away from the mark of
the actual issue?
Yeah, of the actual issue. God.
I think the protections that like we were talking about, like in terms of stopping teachers from talking about age inappropriate things, I think that already exists, and the recourse to like pursue repercussions for the teacher already existed too. It's just that this bill specifies certain topics that should be talked about, which I think is kind of dangerous in terms of like, you know,
it's a risk
protecting gay teachers from being able to teach and like have their life. You know what I mean? But that's just what I think.
Which is actually a nice transition into the next debate topic, which is, should we pass legislation targeting the issues affecting certain minority groups?
So the way I have this formulated in my mind, when I made the question, right, was there's a particular law in California that gave a certain amount of money to black farmers.
Okay.
And I think that's wrong. That is like the main reason I think laws such as that, if there's a similar one that's like, okay, this particular minority is getting this, like kind of reparations, whatever, is getting this. I think that's wrong for the most part. Like if we in this lifetime have ruined someone's like some particular group of like group or minority. And like, let's say we put a bunch of, Asians into a camp, right? I think reparation, well, like right now, like I'm talking like tomorrow, like they put a bunch of Asians in the camp, but for real, like right now, like tomorrow. Okay. I think, and then we let them out. I think reparations are probably valid then.
Okay.
But reparations and things like that happening generations before us is just like,
it's kind of like riding by on like your grandfather's will kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of.
That's just from what I'm understanding.
So
particularly the law.
Yeah. The way that I kind of see this is that like historically there was obvious oppression for black people, right? Like it was written in the laws with Jim Crow, slavery, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Right. And for people who have for that oppression that happened for those many, many years, I think that there are systemic issues that persist because of the legislative choices that we made in the past. You know, so like an example of this could be redlining, where like if we, you know what redlining is?
Yeah.
Just for the people who don't,
me.
It's basically like I forget when this was. It was either like in the 60s or the 70s or something. And the basically communities were like sectioned off into like red, yellow, and green districts, saying like, red, never invest here, never give home loans or anything like this.
Always trust
for
the
those
green people.
Yellow people is like, it's like risky. Wait, wrong. Yellow people.
Alex gave Anthony a look.
And then for the green people, it's like, yes, invest in this community, give them home loans, those sorts of things.
Okay.
And so you would see clearly that like a lot of the divisions in communities fell along racial lines. So very much majority Black communities were completely redlined. And so they lost the ability to for like a lot of investment in their area, which is why I think a lot of that poverty in those areas persists today.
Okay.
And that's just actually one aspect of it, because I think it's multifaceted in the ways that we've kind of destroyed, honestly, a lot of the avenues for like Black people to succeed in a lot of ways.
Okay. But do we have anything that is in legislation today?
In legislation today? So,
do we have any examples of something that may not be in legislation, but has some kind of societal issue specifically today?
So this is the difference between like institutional and systemic racism.
Okay.
Right? Like institutional is like Jim Crow, like, or slavery, where it's like written into the laws of like very explicitly. And obviously that existed in America, but I don't think it exists very much today. There are some small hints of it. Like, for example, North Carolina or South Carolina, they had the GOP in like this district. What they did was they asked for voter data based on demographics. So like racial demographics specifically. So it's like they would look at like white people, Black people, Asian people, Mexican, whatever the fuck. And they would look at like how they would vote, when they would vote, the types of IDs that they would use, where they would vote, like those sorts of things. And so they found that like by this analysis of the demographics, they found that Black people voted with certain types of IDs. They voted on average like 4 weeks earlier. Like they would do like 4 weeks before the polls open or whatever. And there were like other things like that. And and obviously they knew where they voted. And so the GOP or voting commission or whatever, they closed down like polling places in those specific areas. They shortened the window for early voting. They outlawed the types of IDs that Black people would use, and this is pretty fucking racist.
That's pretty bad.
You know what I mean? And like it never, ever, ever in the legislation does it mention Black people. Yeah. Right. It's literally just they did an analysis of racial demographics. And then in the legislation, they specified the downstream, like variables that like point towards Black voters. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. So like, I think that institutional racism by and large doesn't necessarily exist, but there are still some cases of it kind of persisting. But systemic racism doesn't require any individual actor within the system or legislation to be racist, right? It persists specifically because of like historical oppression that has happened in the past. And that has to deal with redlining, the construction of highways, like the certain zoning laws and like material usage, like those things.
Could you happen to tie this back into current legislation?
Well, I did. The voting law in North Carolina. That actually got struck down by the Supreme Court of North Carolina. They said that it targeted African Americans with surgical precision, which
that makes sense.
Wow.
Yeah. That makes sense. With that, I don't know anything about the law, but I'll take your word for it. I think something like that's rough. Like that's terrible. I think we have to keep in mind with systemic racism is that my like grandparents saw Jim Crow laws. It was pretty recent.
Fucking recent.
Yeah, it was pretty recent, right? So the progress on these things are going to be really slow.
Yeah,
right?
Of course. For sure. Systemic issues are like the hardest to solve. Like I'm not doubting that at all.
It'll be late, but I don't think the solution is to target those groups again. For example, in the opposite direction, like, for example, giving black farmers a certain amount of money instead of white farmers for COVID, which doesn't I don't think black people were targeted.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. So like, cause I don't know anything specifically about that law.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes,
Jamie, pull up the bill.
I think specifically sometimes like we focus solely on race, and I don't think that's really good. Like it should be an intersectional approach where we look at race paired with like economic standing and like things like that or whatever, and target the people who actually need it, you know? But like in terms of that bill, if I were to give it the most steelman position that I can based off knowing nothing about it, right? Black people on average they have lower incomes, they have lower levels of household wealth, they have, you know, a lot of like they're on average, they're much more affected by poverty, which is why like a lot of legislation that attacks certain voting rights, like that's why people say you're actually just going against black people because like the legislation will target poor people specifically, but because it's in like an area that's majority black and those people tend to be poor, then like it leads to racist outcomes, you know, even if we may not want that. So I think there needs to be legislation to kind of pad and what's the word? Like to go against or like to counter that thing. But I will say in COVID, I think it's kind of silly. Like people should just be given money so they can live. Yeah. You know?
If you're gonna pass legislation to give money, you don't target
specifically in COVID. In that context, I definitely agree.
I get you.
Something particular that I'm reading about this, the bill actually is it says
which bill?
The bill that Cole was talking about. It says specifically that the USDA has admitted it systemically denied blacks. It says blacks, which
oh my God,
has denied blacks and other people of color access to the same loan and grant programs that have helped generations of white people. So it seems like they're using this bill as a way to give them the same aid that they've given other people, which I think is an important thing to note here.
I'm really sorry, but I have to pee really bad.
We can take an intermission.
It's going to be a long.
Yeah, I need to powder my nose.
So we just learned that the article that I got from Agri News is actually in North Carolina. So it doesn't exactly apply, but
well, it's like the same idea.
It's like the same kind of bill, but you know the idea that it was made to like kind of subsidize what they missed out on a previous legislation, which I don't know if is the exact case of what's happening in California.
Yeah. Can't that like fall into the same definition as basically paying reparations? Isn't that the whole tie of your
I think
argument?
So too. I mean, if it happened like 10, 20 years ago,
it depends on
Cole's argument.
It depends on like what the nature of the funds are, because they're not giving them like reparations is like paying them back for some like some oppression or whatever that they experienced. But like this, I guess in a way it's reparations because partially like that's part of their justification. But the main priority of it is like COVID guidelines, like subsidizing that versus like, because like if you were to get like a reparations bill, right, that legislation, it would talk like about slavery specifically and like why we have to give people money for that like specific thing. But like, I don't know. I feel like it's a little different. But even if it is reparations, I'm not even against reparations necessarily. We can talk about that if you want.
I'm not necessarily against reparations if it's something recent. Like if, for example, that North Carolina bill like fucked over black people like 10, 20 years ago, right?
Yeah. So there was I forget where it was. I think it was somewhere in the South. But this black family had like proof that that this like white family, that like their grandparents, like the black woman's grandparents were like killed and their house was taken by the white person's grandparents. Okay. And so, you know, obviously many, like a generation later, or I forget if it was grandparents or parents, because these people were pretty old themselves. So it's like their parents could be fucking from all the way back then. But like, do you think that's justified in a way
to give the house back?
To give the house back, or maybe if to not give the house back, but to give some financial recompense or whatever
Can we get a common definition of what you guys think reparations is? Because from what I'm just from the conversation
thus far,
the idea that I'm getting is that the understanding of reparations is like a deprivation or being deprived of your will, essentially. That's kind
being
of
paid for that. Yeah.
Reparations is the counter effect of being deprived of your will.
I think reparations are good in the sense that if you personally
not good. What is your definition of reparations? So that way, going forward, we have a clear understanding of what both you.
What I'm thinking, what it is in my mind is that you are paying somebody with either financial or physical compensation for something that was previously done to them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you personally did that, then yes, right? But if my grandparents did, or if my grandparents did it to someone else and then their grandparents were screwed,
doesn't that personally affect you though?
It does, but I mean, we personally affect Native Americans. Should we give reparations to Native Americans?
Maybe. I mean,
it's in the question.
I don't think so.
That's
well. I mean, the point of this discussion is that it's in the question.
Yeah.
So, putting aside Native Americans,
Mm-hmm.
there was after slavery was abolished, there was a deal that was made for previous slaves where they would get 40 acres and a mule.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with this?
Not really, but that sounds right.
Yeah, it was an actual legislative action. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that all these people who got offered this deal, a lot of it was fallen back on. Either they weren't given it at all, or it was sublet from a white farmer who had mm-hmm. a lot of control over their production and their revenues and all those things. Mm-hmm. Or they would charge super high fees or something like that. And it just really the deal wasn't really made, it wasn't properly carried out. And I think the American, so that's one aspect of it. And then I think the continued degradation of the condition of Black Americans from redlining or keeping them out of the benefits from the GI Bill, which is, for those who don't know, when soldiers go to, or when they join the military, they get free college or very heavily subsidized college. Mm-hmm. And it was not given to Black people from all the way I don't know if we even fought in World War I, but after World War II and the Vietnam War and the Korean War, I don't even think in any of those situations they were offered the benefits from the GI Bill. I could be wrong though on that, because it's definitely at least after World War II they weren't offered, mm-hmm. which is one of the biggest wars that we fought that a fuck ton of Americans went to. The thing is, it's so multifaceted in the way that we oppress Black people, mm-hmm. because it's there's even so many small things the way that in old housing, a lot of Black people, because they are on average more poor, they're relegated to older housing units. And a lot of those older housing units have really bad pipes that are either built with lead, or they're using lead paint, or all of these horrible things that cause actual brain damage to people. Yeah. You know what I mean? Lowers your fucking IQ by a whole fucking standard deviation.
Yeah, in Michigan, right?
Yeah. And they've they got the shit in Flint kind of fixed up, but
did they? Good for
them. For the most part.
Thank God.
There's still a lot of lead paint in houses and stuff, mm-hmm. and it's just I don't know, and even the construction of the highways, sectioning off certain neighborhoods that were majority white and majority Black from a whole highway, or just driving right through a highway or a Black community to get to a city, because they just didn't have the respect for it. They prioritized the white homeowners. I think just there's those things and so many more other just conditions of the time just destroyed Black people's ability to actually change their trajectory in a lot of ways. A lot of poor people are relegated to the conditions that they're born into. A lot of them don't make it out. It's sad, but it's a concept known as stickiness at the end, right? The poorest people are probably going to remain poor for a few generations, while the richest people are going to remain rich. This is an economic or sociological concept. I think it's just because Black people on average are more poor, there are things that we can do to kind of alleviate those conditions that the American government created. You know, we might not be directly responsible in that the citizens alive today voted for those things, but like they voted for them a generation ago. Like that's not really that long ago. You know, it's like, I understand the recentism because it's like, how far do you go back? You know, like, do we give the fucking Mayans or whatever that got fucked by the conquistadors, like some shit, or anything like that? And it's like, I can understand that. However, this is like the American government, you know, it's not like the colonies. Like this happened under like the United States of America, you know, and I guess like, and that's why I kind of support like certain Native American reparations too, but it's very different with them because of like the whole reservation system and like there's like a lot of other shit going on, you know.
Yeah, I got you.
So like, yeah, that's just my take on it.
I think I'll be very specific with what I think, and we'll see if you disagree or
okay.
So with reparations, I think that it shouldn't happen if it wasn't happen directly to you. So let's say you are a black person and the government said, I don't know, 40 acres and a mule. All right. And then they don't give it to you. That's a fault of the government in that case. And they should give it to you. Right. But they shouldn't give it to that person's grandchildren.
Why not?
Because it wasn't given to them.
So you think it should, from
so,
my understanding,
so it shouldn't be grandfathered in, is what I'm saying.
It should be to an individual basis, not a family basis.
Yes.
I don't know. I kind of have a problem with this because it's like, then we never made the deal. You know what I mean? If you gave the deal to some person back then and you never carried it out, it's like, so no one benefits from the deal that you made. The deal was just hollow and empty and meaningless.
Well, yeah, the deal was fucked. Like,
I think that's fucked up. And
I think so too.
It sets a lot of people back in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? I just think, I don't know what the econ equivalent today of 40 acres and a mule would be.
Yeah.
But like, you know,
I think someone actually did the calculations for
probably
Bitcoin.
Well, probably not anymore.
I think the main thing is, I think the solution to these black issues, like black people are more poor, or not just black people, but minorities are in general more poor. I think the solution is to help the poor people.
Yeah, so, I don't disagree.
Like, I don't think we want to like, why would you want to segregate the poor people? Like, that doesn't make sense. Well, like, what about
because some poor people need it more than other poor people. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, it doesn't mean that poor people don't get anything. It just that means that the poorest of the poor get a little more. Bars.
It's like a grade on curve on your grade.
Well, I mean,
Dr. Political.
Do you believe in curving grades?
Yeah.
What does curving grades have to do with reparations?
I don't know what it has to do.
Well, literally,
do you believe in bonus points?
I'm talking about in the
extra credit.
I'm talking about in the idea of, you know, like economically, where it's like you have the wealthy, the people who are getting like 100% on the test is like, well, how much should you care on a test about, you know, the people who are doing like, who just don't get it as well. And it's just that I feel like that there are kind of ties in here of like,
I could see the analogy that you're
I mean, the main thing is, I think I'm going to like try to.
Just, you know what? Take it however you want. Just fucking ignore me. Honestly, it was a bad thing. I drew the parallel. Yeah. But also, fuck you.
I mean, it's like the idea of compensation at that point.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how much do we want to help the people who need it? In this case.
Well, then it turns into a moral dilemma.
Logically, there exists a white farmer who is more poor than a black farmer, right? And they would probably need it more.
I think like people of the Appalachia, like that region, and like certain mining towns, right? Like, but that wouldn't be at a racial level. That would just be at a like a past industry. Like, where'd you work? You know, like, were you part of the fucking, you know, like people in Appalachia are fucked. So, and a lot of people like but a lot of people in like Virginian old mining towns are fucked. Like, I don't know if you've ever driven through them, but it's like, it's like depressing. It's like super sad. They're like isolated from the world. And so I think definitely those people need to be targeted too. You know, it's just that
I think it should be regions and economic based, not race.
Yeah. So do you think that this, not necessarily reparations, but like economic assistance essentially should be focused more on those red lines that you talked about earlier?
Yeah, I guess you could probably focus it on the specific regions that redlining was done. I don't disagree with that, you know. But so then, okay, I can just concede then, you know, that maybe we should just focus on economic like things, and then paired with like certain regional aspects or something like that.
Did I just win a debate?
Well, hang on now,
Maybe.
because that's not the only aspect of racially
It solves
like
one
racially
targeted laws.
targeted legislation, right?
Okay.
What
It
about the
solves
Civil
one of
Rights
many
Act?
fragments of
Okay.
Or like the Bill C-16 shit, from
What's
Canada.
Bill C-16.
That's the in Canada,
Amy?
you're not allowed you're not allowed to misgender like you're not allowed to misgender employees, tenants, or like things of that nature.
Like purposely?
Like, yeah, purposefully.
Okay.
Yeah. In a harassing manner.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like if I was your boss, I couldn't fucking call you like a little baby bitch, or maybe not that. I couldn't call you a little girl, you know
Only
what I mean?
my
Or
wife
something
can
like
call
that.
me
Yeah. And I couldn't do those things.
I think I believe I conceded when we had that argument to an extent.
Yeah.
With I think in a business setting, it's definitely like, I think out on the street doesn't matter. But I think in a business setting, it's very important.
Yeah, out on
that
the street
there's
is
some
very
protections.
different.
To
And
uphold professional conduct, that's just like a
Oh,
whole
yeah.
different matter, I feel.
It's super important because in a corporate and professional manner, they have so much power. The people who are above you, like they have the power to choose whether you have enough money to eat or have rent. And that shouldn't be based on your race, gender, whatever. So it's similar to our first debate to an extent.
Mhm.
Like, I think they should leave it out.
Okay. Yeah.
In context, these guys have debated multiple times over a Discord server.
Yeah,
We always
have a
argue,
Discord
yeah.
server specifically for it. Well, that's what it's turned into nowadays.
And we have
A political battleground.
Yeah.
It's literally called the political battleground. And honestly,
Well-
I think it's really fun to see like live in podcast form.
I think I was talking about our first debate in the in here, like
Oh,
the
okay.
first one, the first
yeah.
question.
Okay.
Oh,
To
yeah.
go back to that, I think it's similar to that, where I don't think that it should be discussed. Someone
Oh,
can-
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Similar, not the same because they're adults, but similar.
Yeah.
Right. Any closing statements then?
No.
I think Anthony's a little bitch. No,
In
So,
close.
I'm going to say it.
This is on another kind of good tie-in with the whole COVID thing. So in the wake of COVID-19, do you believe the restrictions and regulations in America were effective?
What are we defining by
All right.
effective?
Yeah.
What is the desired effect?
Probably just like to stop spread, I'd imagine, is like the response. And also, are we talking about the response of the people or the response that our country took?
I guess it would be,
Well, the
I
government.
guess specifically it means like, were they like a positive impact on like restricting the COVID-19
So-
pandemic?
though, like when I formulated this is what I was thinking, like with there's kind of a balance, and the more you restrict people, the worse the economy gets, and the less you do it, the worse the COVID gets, but the better the
It's a
economy
cost
goes.
benefit
Yes.
analysis. Yeah.
So I think
Those.
personally, it's really hard to gauge with the economics specifically because we're okay. Jordan Peterson made this analogy that I liked a lot. I saw it on Instagram today. There is the America is basically just a big ass boat, a big boat. All right. And there's an iceberg. Okay. We made this iceberg with this pandemic regulations and things. We are too big to turn away from the iceberg now. We're going to hit the iceberg. We just haven't hit it yet.
Oh, you're talking about like the whole
The
Titanic
recession.
thing where like if you hit it straight on, you won't, the Titanic won't sink kind of shit.
No,
Well,
I don't.
you can't actually turn because the vessel's way too big to turn it in time. So you're just going to
So
hit it
you're saying that the iceberg is a recession.
pretty much.
Okay.
We're going to hit a recession eventually.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be significantly worse because of the actions we took with COVID.
So the so I guess I
mean,
guess what I
that's
would
not
say.
debatable, but
Yeah. I guess what I would say is that there is a huge cost benefit. Okay, here's a big problem that I have
okay.
is that every time that I talk to like a conservative or something about COVID-19, they always say that like, oh, it only affects people with pre-existing conditions and you got to be old as shit and you got to be this, you got to be that. Like a big problem with that is that like a large portion of America has those pre-existing conditions, whether it's obesity or fucking diabetes or they're old as shit or anything along those lines. Like I think like more than 60% have like 2 or 3 of them, you know? So it's like there needs to be like more of a focus on like on that aspect, because the whole idea of like, you know, it's only a COVID death if they only had COVID and no other pre-existing conditions. Like, it's really fucking stupid, I think. Like that analysis of, and I'm not saying, I don't think you've done that at all. Like, we haven't even talked about that. So I'm not calling you stupid, but I think that analysis of like that sort of thing is stupid. And so it changes the way that we analyze, you know, the cost benefit, you know what I mean? Because while regulations did exacerbate some, some economic like issues, there was like research done in two interesting studies that I saw, where one, they looked at like the foot traffic after like the pandemic started. They looked at the foot traffic of like certain retail stores and restaurants and like compared where there were like no regulations and where there were like a lot of regulations. And what they found is that there was like a negligible change in the foot traffic, right? Which means like, at least the conclusions that the researchers made was that the reduction of like economic activity that's happening is because of the pandemic. People don't want to go outside and get sick in these like high, and this was in early days of the pandemic when this was done, because obviously as time went on, people got really tired of the regulations. But
well, I mean, I don't think that's really that valid in the earliest days, like when there's actual lockdown and they couldn't open their doors, like restaurants. You couldn't go to them.
I'm not saying it was like right, like
it was like right after,
because they had like right after, as in like the following months or like half a year or so, because like there were areas that didn't have lockdowns. You know what I mean? Like
to an extent.
Yeah. Well, because also, what's it called? It's really hard to remember because a lot of shit is blurred right now. Yeah. But like from what I remember, there wasn't really like a national level lockdown. Like there were some in terms of like first year, I guess we'll look at, like, I don't remember there being like a national level lockdown. Yeah. It was like, it was like promoted by the president, but it wasn't like states had a lot of variability in how they could go about it, you know?
Yeah. A lot of states did things very differently. Yeah. I know Ohio, we had that first, like, how long was the actual like supreme lockdown? Like no restaurants,
2 or 3 weeks or something.
Yeah. Something like that. I think it was, I want to remember.
I remember I was working at a bar at that time, and when COVID first started, we literally in the first couple of days we were still open. Then for like, very luckily we managed to transition to like takeout and just like delivery driving like immediately after. So I don't know how other restaurants and places responded, but it was a very quick transition to we need to do driving right now and delivery because otherwise we will shut the fuck down.
It's going to be really hard because the recession is going to happen, whether or not we had the COVID lockdown or anything like that. Yeah. There's going to be a recession, but
because that's just the nature of like boom bust cycles in our market.
So the major thing is it's going to be super hard to tell whether or not actual issues of the pandemic and the lockdowns actually made it worse or not. Because when we have we don't know, right? We can't go to a different universe and say, no. COVID didn't happen.
No, but we do have early models of like, you know, where we had a range of like possible, like, you know, where we do the least amount of regulations versus like the most amount of regulations. Where I think from like early estimates, it was like, I think like 3 million or something was like the high, like if we did no regulations at all. And then like the low was like 500K or some shit like that. If we did like shit in China or something where they're like boarding up doors and everything. Yeah. But like but obviously we've experienced 1 million people, I think in the United States dying. And and it's like, I don't know. I think that there is at least based off the models, and I do respect aspects of modeling. Obviously, there are. I don't know exactly how they performed the like actually developing the models, but like there are a lot of like assumptions that can be made that are really wrong, you know. But I don't know. I have faith in epidemiologists for the most part.
I mean, I kind of do in America and a lot of other countries, but actually my last project that I did, the one I was talking to you about that I did twice, we took COVID data from 3 different sources and integrated it in my data integration class, you know, great. But the main problem with it is a lot of countries misrepresent their numbers. Like China, I think has reported like 300,000 cases. Like there's no fucking way. Like or something
to be
like
fair, they do have 1 billion people. So I definitely think that they're underreporting.
They're 100 billion% on.
Yeah, but they did take some of the strictest measures. So
yeah, there's no way. There's no way it worked that well. There's guaranteed.
I don't disagree because there's an analysis of like the purchasing of coffins or urns. Yeah. I think it was urns actually because they're burning the fucking bodies. And like there was a massive increase in like the sale of urns and shit like that. And it wasn't proportional to the ones that they marked. Well, and I don't disagree that some are underreporting, but like this is data based off the US done by United States epidemiologists, you know? I don't really have a reason to think that they're lying or a reason to think that they would misrepresent. Obviously, some countries differ.
We've already seen a lot of economic impact with particularly California. I don't remember what the percentage is. Maybe Jamie here can look it up. But I think I think it's like 20 to 50% of small businesses closed in California, something like that, or small restaurants rather. I don't think it's the small businesses are the ones that are going to get shit on by this. I know I personally felt it being at a startup company, right? We basically couldn't go into meetings, couldn't do all this because of all the lockdowns and everything. I mean, at that point it was early and we didn't really know. But after we actually had the data of COVID and how deadly it actually is, I think it was way too.
35.9% of small businesses.
A million people in 3 years?
I mean,
like what is the number that would say what is the number of people that would justify the regulations and economic damage?
That number is really misleading as well, because if someone has COVID and they die, it's like not everyone, like pretty much everyone got COVID. Did you guys all get COVID?
Yeah, I did.
I didn't.
I only got it recently.
Yeah, I'm kind of upset about that.
I didn't get it.
I didn't get it either.
I didn't get it. I
almost didn't.
50% of the people. I don't know if Jenny got it, but 50% of the people in this debate, right, have gotten COVID. Mm-hmm. Everyone, like, if
we're also 20 years old,
people die. Yeah, a lot of people die generally. So if let's say a lot of them get COVID and then they die, it's really hard to tell if the cause was COVID. And most of the people who die from COVID have the pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, right? But you already do you think that what I said earlier makes that criticism no, you're good. Kind of like, because I think it kind of invalidates that because
and the reason I think it's to an extent is because we're healthy 20-year-olds, right?
Yeah, but what is the population of healthy 20-year-olds?
Well, I mean, should the healthy 20-year-olds have to be inside?
Maybe not inside, but they should definitely like mask up or like, because think about it like this, right? If I have a family, you know, me, wife, 3 kids, and my mom lives with me, or my mom's husband or whatever the fuck, like or my wife's boyfriend, you know, who's old. If I were to, if we were to just have like a fully open economy or whatever, you know, no regulations, but old people stay at home, you know, like there is still a huge chance that those old people will get COVID because of like the spreading done by people who are younger. You know, it may not affect me as much, but I can still spread it to people who will affect, you know?
Yes and no. I mean, I agree with you, but also I don't think that people should be, their freedom should be limited based on other people's issues. Like we've never dealt with any issue like that. Like if someone had a pre-existing issue, they were the ones that had to deal with it. Right.
Yeah. But you don't think it affects society a little more when massive numbers of people are dying or the stress on our healthcare system because of the nursing shortage, as well as the increase in traffic?
Well, I think definitely when there's a pandemic going around, it'll put stress on you, but it's up to you whether you want to take the risk or not. I think so. I think it's definitely should be on the individual rather than the big brother government telling you, hey, stay at home.
I don't know, because like if we had, let's say that there was like an Ebola outbreak or something in America where this is something that is highly deadly, you know, spreads very quickly.
What was the book we had to read about that?
I have no fucking.
My mom did that.
I used to
Yeah,
think
she
it
got
was
AIDS.
fucking-
No, she made us read the book.
Oh,
I think.
Yeah, I think that's where I read it.
It was either
was it called?
I'm always mix it up with like Fahrenheit
No.
7 with something,
yeah.
but I think it's literally another thing where it's just numbers. Not
No,
100%
it's like
sure.
where the something falls
where
or
the
like,
wild things are.
No,
Where the
I love
wild
that
things
one.
are.
Yeah, that
can't
was just
remember.
a case about an Ebola outbreak.
but like if something like that happened, do you think the government can't tell people like, hey, stay inside? Like,
Well-
let's deal with this.
Well, yeah, because that's deadly to everyone, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So
The hot zone.
and all.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There you go. The
I
main
never
thing
read
is
that
like
book.
my main
Spartans.
criticism is after we've learned the data, right? I like when we didn't
Well, that's
know.
all hindsight, though.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Okay.
All right. So after we learned everything, then we were still doing, okay, we're going to keep everyone inside and you can only do takeout and all of that stuff. It was a little shaky, I'd say. For the first 2 weeks, we had no idea what the fuck was going on. People thought everyone was going to die. And it was like, it was actually terrible. Like that was genuine.
Yeah, that was the original perception.
That was the original perception. But once it turned out to be kind of mild and we got more data, I mean, we even had early China data, right? Where before they were like really trying to cover it up.
Wasn't it also the origin of COVID that was causing more panic than I feel like the actual? I feel like
Kinda,
it was such a televised event, and there was a lot of misinformation that was spread during that period too.
Yeah, conservative in my mind. I think you'll agree at least. Conservatives focus a lot on like, did it originate from a lab? Like,
Yeah.
was it a lab leak? You know, that whole like theory about it.
Yeah, we'll probably never know, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of
Unless
hard to
someone
know.
comes
But
out
also,
and
It's
says,
gonna be another one of those things like, well, monkeys had AIDS.
yeah, like,
but
no one will
I
know
don't
for
think it
sure.
really matters though where it comes from, because it's like it's already out, right? All we can do is deal with the repercussions.
Yeah.
You know, like, and also the
well, I don't
like
like that
the
argument.
lab that exists in Wuhan,
Mhm.
like that's a like it's like there's U.S. investment in it. You know,
Yeah.
like unless you think that the United States and China were collaborating to release like some virus like to the entire population to gain some global control.
That's a
Like,
blog post.
That's a fun story, you know, that's a fun like narrative to like think about, but
That's a
like I think
conspiracy,
it's
yeah.
pretty unrealistic. Yeah.
Well, I think the main thing is if like I don't like that argument for one reason. And like if you shoot someone and you're like, well, he's dead already, so you know, might as well leave it. You know, like that's a bad
that doesn't really apply.
because
it's
if
like-
they did it, even if you shoot the gun on accident, right? They may have maybe they were doing some kind of research and that research.
Are you trying to
was
make
bad.
negligent discharge?
Like
Law
here's
apply
yeah.
here?
well, no,
Okay.
here's the thing, right? Because we wouldn't. What needs to happen after someone gets shot is
Okay.
that someone gets taken to the hospital, right?
Yeah.
What happened after there might have been negligence and the virus got released? We need to create legislation and public policy to counter it, right? But what happens after is the trial, right? We punish the person who killed, right? But like an investigation, like I don't think focusing on the investigation and punishing whoever released it or whatever is really like the primary focus that should be
like a mix of
that should be-
priorities.
there should be a priority first and foremost to deal with the effects of the virus.
Well, I agree
if
with you
possible.
there, but also I think we should agree. We should definitely go look at both things, right?
Yeah, we can look at
the
both
same time.
things, but it's like, but when the problem is like when I look at this like from like a political, like legislative standpoint, conservatives did not care about the effects. They
Yeah.
cared about where it came from only. You know, they prioritized like China this, China that. They're evil.
Yeah.
They're trying to kill us all or whatever. They're trying to gain control. And it's like, maybe like, but even if that is true, that should make you want to counter the virus even more because if this COVID-19 has like some crazy unknown effects synthesized by the Chinese government.
Yeah.
You would obviously want that to not be spread. You would want to deal with the effects.
It's the same thing with like law enforcement. Like if a crime happens, I'm just saying you want an immediate response time on it. And when a crisis occurs, you want a response to it, not necessarily like a, well, we're kind of mulling over the facts right now. It's like something's happening right now. Essentially, the crime is happening now.
I think it was like 3 months after the first COVID case in America happened. Like Donald Trump did nothing. Like he didn't talk about it. He said it was going to go away. He said like it's being blown up by Democrats or whatever the fuck. Like he didn't do anything. You know what I mean? All he did was posture against like China and say they released this virus, blah, 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 blah. And, people ate it up. But like, well, I guess maybe not, because the election was kind of a referendum on his COVID stuff. But
I think, do you think that, let's say, I think the conspiratorial, like they released it on purpose is stupid, frankly. Like, why would they do that? And like, if they were going to do that, why would they release such a mild, why wouldn't they do like an Ebola or something like that?
It was a test.
Right. Yeah. Like just a real quick test.
Have you ever played Plague Inc? You got to give it to everyone before you mutate and get the deadly parts.
Yeah, that's true.
The kill switch.
All right. But the main thing is like, why would you do that? But let's say hypothetically, if they made the virus and then it leaked somehow, like just from negligence, right? Should that kind of research be halted if it was or some kind of issue? Like there should be some kind of law or some kind of legislation or some kind of action that happens to that, so it doesn't happen in the future. Maybe it's stricter guidelines or something like that.
Guidelines exist already for those things.
It should be more than that. Right?
Well, so the thing is though, is that like a lot of, so I think you're referencing like the gain of function stuff.
Gain of function stuff.
And so the thing with gain of function is that like it has led to a lot of really good developments in terms of like, I don't exactly understand it, but it's like, it's basically and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like they take like a sample of some virus that they have and they do something in a petri dish that makes it like replicate a fuck ton. Okay. And you can use that to like study mutations and like the way that it spreads and like all these other things about it.
I believe it. They also make it worse as well.
Yeah.
That's to study.
So that's what it's simulated mutations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it also could have potentially caused the worst pandemic we've seen in a long time.
That might be true, but it's like, I don't know. Like, does one, so, okay, here, this is I guess a question that we should ask. Does the losses from this pandemic mean that we should never do that research again and like lose out on all of the potential gains in the future?
I think more studies have to be done. Like, let's hypothetically say 100% they did it, right? And it was done in the lab. Okay. Then we have to look at it and see if it was negligence or if it was like
purposeful.
Okay. So then let's say we go down the line and it's negligence, right? So then we have to look at what were the precautions they used. Were they using a lot of precautions or were they using a little? Okay. And then let's say they were using a lot of precautions and it was like perfectly, it's just like, no, like, you know, I don't know, some
worst case scenario,
like, I don't know, the 3 people who were supposed to be watching the substance, like, fell over and died, and then, like, you know, like worst possible scenario, like
a guy trips on his shoelace, his head cracks against the glass. There's a small little split, and his air filters popped off.
His child called him from like school. He's sick, and the vibration like pulled it off. You know, like shit like that. Like 1 in a million scenario. Like if that is the case, then probably should stop, right?
I don't know
if they use like perfect precautions,
because like even the thing is that they're like for research of like that has like high capacity for like danger or death or whatever the fuck, right? Like these sorts of things have a ton of regulations around them. So like the fault is like 0.0000001% error or something like that, even smaller probably.
Yeah,
but that's still non-zero, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I think like I wish I knew more. Hey, Jamie, pull up gains made from gain of function research. Okay. Cause I think it has led to a lot of really positive developments in epidemiology in terms of like understanding the spread of disease and like how to deal with certain diseases. But like so like I think axing that, I think it kind of like kneecaps a whole industry basically, or a whole like leg of science.
Also, how remote are these locations where that the spread is now spanning the scope of like the entire world as well? I feel like there's just a lot of things that just kind of don't make sense to me. So I'm going to refrain.
Well,
from
I mean, if
speaking
one
about it.
person got it at the lab, they could go home.
Yeah,
like,
you should just like be paid to be isolated for your entire life if you're going to be doing epidemiology.
Yeah,
As
but
an interjection, the topic is about restrictions being effective in America.
Oh, yeah.
Well, these
that's
things matter.
Well, I mean, if
because it's like
it's
like, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Well, we need to determine like, you know, what is the value of like of doing those things?
Yeah,
what
I
are
feel
we
like
what
they're
are
just
we
going deep
avoiding?
down.
What are we gaining?
I mean, if there was an American investment in that, the Wuhan lab, right, then it kind of does affect America, because there shouldn't be investment in the Wuhan lab if we determine that there shouldn't be, you know?
I mean, I agree.
I thought I could be very wrong, but I thought gain of function research was very new and didn't really do much yet.
I thought it's been around since like the 70s.
I could be wrong. I could be
I'm
very
like
wrong.
1975.
1975. Okay. So yeah, like we've been using it for quite a while, and this is like the first time in 50 years almost. So
yeah, but it's also like the worst pandemic we've seen in a while, you know, like.
Yeah, true. But how many pandemics has it prevented us from?
I don't know.
Like swine flu wasn't bad.
I don't know if that was because of gain of function.
Yeah, right.
Like,
yeah. That's a tenuous link.
I mean, like the thing about swine flu is like did we have like, I guess we have a flu vaccine, right?
We had a swine flu vaccine. I don't know if you remember, like everyone lining up in like schools and shit. There were like massive lines. I don't know if it was government mandated or if like people just went out and got it. But I don't know.
I don't think it was.
You don't think it was mandated?
I don't think so.
I don't remember.
I mean,
we were young.
I think the people being upset about the government mandates is probably just because of Trump for the most part, but like for both ends, right? So I don't know if they would have gotten as pissed back then, you know? I don't know.
I don't know.
That's so weird. Like imagine
political culture is very different today. Yeah.
Imagine if Trump was president back then. Like how would that have gone? You know, don't take your vaccine, wear your bag of hat. But I mean,
But America was great back then.
Yeah,
it's not now. That's
that
what
was
we
under
focus
Obama.
on.
I mean, we already had a flu vaccine and everything, and I think the flu vaccine is very similar every year, right? It's just like updated a little bit.
Well, yeah. Well, it changes because of like mutations. I don't think like last year's flu vaccine is
it's
useful
like,
for this.
Well, the process that we've been using is the same, and we know it's safe and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
but
different.
also the virus might have come from gain of function research, but like the vaccine itself came from what's it called, the messenger RNA. I don't think that was from gain of function research. No. Yeah. So
that's
like
different.
And that's a very new technology that's like incredible, honestly.
Yeah.
Like
it is and it isn't, right? Because we don't know the long-term effects of it at all.
I mean, like
really
the what's it called? Like the vaccine has been out for what, like 2 years now or something?
Something like that, yeah.
And I think in terms of past vaccines that have been used, like the long-term effects show up in like 6 months usually, or like something like that. And
I'm not a doctor. I have no idea.
I'm not either. I've literally just like read this one time, and I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense.
That Forbes article sounds right.
I'm not an epidemiologist, okay?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that it's just like the nature of like the disease, the way that it spreads. I think all of those things kind of play into the need for more regulations to prevent the spread. You know, whether that's like advocating for social distancing or anything like that.
Well, I think mandating vaccines is probably not a good idea until we learn the actual, because there are actual side effects, right?
So, well, yeah, but there's side effects to every vaccine. Right?
I mean, so
what's a long-term side effect that
I think isn't myocarditis the thing?
So myocarditis is also a side effect of COVID-19. Right?
Yeah,
and people who get COVID-19 have a higher rate of getting myocarditis than people who get the vaccine. Also, myocarditis is not like a chronic thing. It's acute, right? Like it doesn't, it's treatable and it goes away.
I know some, I mean, it's kind of anecdotal, but there are some soccer players who have gotten the vaccine and then pretty much can't play soccer anymore, right? Because
Well,
I think it's irregularities in the heart, right? Is what myocarditis.
Yeah, it's something like that, or like some inflammation. I think.
Yeah, I think it's your blood flowing.
That might be correct. I don't know if it I don't like. Are you sure that it was like permanently they'll never be able to play?
I don't know if it's permanent. I don't know if myocarditis. Is
Hey
permanent.
Jamie.
Hey Jamie.
Is myocarditis permanent?
It's spelled myocarditis.
Thank God
Spell it out, Jamie.
Today.
Wait, hold on. Google's helping me. Is it permanent? You're asking?
Yeah. I don't know if it is, but
I don't think it is.
Even if it isn't, the vaccine isn't permanent, right?
No, but like,
so
is any vaccine permanent?
I think so. I think there are some that are permanent, aren't there? Or like 20,
we get
50,
boosters,
30 years.
Multiple. If you look at the vaccine schedule, like that is created for like kids in America, we get like something like 15 vaccines or some shit from age like 0 to 1.5, I think. Yeah. And some of those vaccines are repeats, like boosters of the last one.
Yeah, but are there, I think.
And you have to continually get tetanus as well.
Are there some vaccines that are permanent? And also, most vaccines are like 99, 100% effective.
Yeah.
So this one is not.
Well, it's also, it was made in a year.
Yeah.
Like it's
good, but
what's it called? What was made from penicillin, or there was like some
penicillin was made from mold.
Yeah, but what the fuck is the disease that like everyone got? Polio or something.
Yeah,
polio vaccine. That one is like pretty permanent, but that's after 50 years of, research.
So should we give someone should we mandate someone take a experimental treatment? But it's not
experimental.
It kind of is. Well, it was, right? It was, right? And should we mandate it?
As a quick interjection, myocarditis is in very rare cases permanent.
Oh, very
most of the time.
Okay, so we're talking about like 1% and 1%, kind of, but still, like you shouldn't.
That exists.
Even if you shouldn't mandate it, especially in a soccer player, someone like that who's going to be highly, highly in tune with what they're going to be doing. Like they're going to be eating the right foods, taking vitamins, working out all the time. They're going to have probably little to no risk factors because it's respiratory. So they're going to have, like, the people who die and have risk factors are going to have lung problems, right? So why should a soccer player have to take something like that?
Does the soccer player ever interact with old people? Or like immunocompromised people? Like, I don't know. I think that there's just ways in our community that we can make people be safer, right? If that means social distancing, I won't disagree that some regulations are probably taken too far, like not being able to go like on the beach or to a park or something, something like that. But like in general, or the principle of regulations, I don't think is a bad thing. And I think is probably necessary to protect some people in our society. We do these things for things like drunk driving, right? Yeah. Like this is, if I drink and drive and I don't crash, I'm not bothering anyone. I'm chilling. I'm doing whatever. But we still punish people who drunk drive and don't crash, because it's like the principle of like you causing that damage to someone else and you just being reckless in your own behavior and like ruining the lives of someone else.
I would be completely on your side, or I don't know if this is necessarily your side, or I would be completely on the side of mandates for vaccines if they were 100%, but they aren't. Like, and they don't last that long. Like, what is it? 6 months? 3 to 6, something like that. But
it's just like vaccines don't last forever.
Yeah, like, I know, but like other ones last
vaccines
longer.
Are like consumables.
And this one's not even that good, like comparatively to other vaccines.
What is the... Because I think the original
vaccine was like
90 something percent, and then it dropped to like 70. And I think the one that I got like a year and a half ago, or how long ago was it? The one that I got probably barely helps me now.
So how come... So would you be okay with us mandating the Johnson & Johnson one? Because that wasn't made with messenger RNA. That was made with traditional methods. And if you remember, like
does that one have side effects, and is that one 100% effective?
Yes, it has side effects, and no, it's not 100% effective.
Yeah, so no.
Okay. Then we've done production of vaccines in a very short period of time, like with the swine flu vaccine and with I don't know the name of it. But like we've done this multiple times where we've developed it in a short period of time, and it's helped immensely in terms of capping the spread of it.
I'm not saying that it shouldn't be taken.
Even if it's not 100% effective, 70% of efficaciousness applied to 100% of the population is a good amount of like efficacious vaccines. What's it called? And for stopping the spread as well.
Well, yes and no, because you don't stop, you can still get it and spread it if you have the vaccine, right? So a child who has a higher risk of getting
it and spreading it.
Yeah.
You have to think about the likelihood, the probability of getting it and spreading it. They're both immensely lower. And also the long-term effects are also like hindered because of the vaccine being taken. So it's like people who had like long-term respiratory problems, you know, if they were to take a vaccine before that, it's possible or even likely that they wouldn't have those same issues. Because it's just, you know, the vaccine does provide benefits.
If we look at like a 5-year-old, they're going to get COVID and be like it's going to be gone, right? Why should they get
5-year-old? But yeah.
Kind of, yeah. But I mean, like very rarely, unless if they have another pre-existing condition or anything like that. I mean, if
Adam might not make it.
Asthma, diabetes.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you have, if
kids are obese as shit.
If you have those pre-existing conditions, I'm saying you should get it. But if you don't, that's like the main thing.
But it's like
me personally, I only got it because I was interacting with my parents, right? And my mom's a smoker and my dad's kind of old. So,
well, I think a reason why it might be applied to everyone is because of like the what's it called, like equal protections or something. I forget what it's called, but it's like you can't like create a legislation that specifically applies to someone because of their like immutable like condition or whatever.
Well, I think you should be able to choose. I don't think there should be legislation at all telling you have to take a medical procedure, right? That's what I think for the most part. I mean, some of the older vaccines that actually like 100% effective and there's like little or no side effects. And it's like,
personally, I'd argue of how invasive it is.
You're afraid of needles.
I am afraid of needles, but like, I am not opposed to getting a vaccine. I've gotten the vaccine, but it's just like, I feel like there needs to be drawn a certain line at what point where a medical procedure becomes so invasive that by all accounts shouldn't be mandated. And like, I feel like drawing the line there is really important of what is what infringes upon what, because I feel like that's what you're trying to build here, Cole, where you're saying that these vaccines that aren't 100% effective, they provide side effects, and it's like, in a way, it affects your capabilities to perform whatever you wish to do. Suppose that you're like 100% healthy person, you know, the option is there. I don't know where I'm leading this to, but that's just from what I'm trying to understand.
A person who is healthy and doesn't have these pre-existing conditions, they're going to get COVID, and 99.999% they're going to be fine. I mean, you could get the flu and die and be like that. You could get all of this.
The thing is that the population of people who fit that category are not, I don't even think they're the majority of the people in the country. You know what I mean?
And those people should get the vaccine on their own choice.
So Anthony, do you,
okay.
Are you working under the assumption that the vaccine is more about accountability rather than the side effects?
I think it's more about, well, because I think the side effects are negligible. That's the thing. And I think the side effects from COVID-19 are actually worse than the side effects from the vaccine. And this is borne out in a lot of data. You know, there is like long-term effects with your ability to smell or taste things. There's like, what's it called? Like there's long COVID, which causes like long-term respiratory problems. Obviously it causes myocarditis and like other heart inflammation or other inflammation throughout the body. Like these sorts of side effects, not only does it affect like everyone, because it will, like people who are still young and healthy, they still get some long-term side effects from it. These sorts of things, like it causes stress on the medical system. It causes stress on our economy. It causes more death. It causes, you know, like, I think it's just like, there should be a vaccine created and probably mandated in order to like stop those things from happening. It might be authoritarian. You might call it authoritarian, but like, I think that there are some events that happen in which authoritarian actions need to be taken.
I would like to say, can we get closing statements from both sides? Because this is
it's about 2 hours right now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my main thing is, I think for someone who is I think I'm not anti-vax at all. Like I've gotten the vaccine. I don't think the main thing is, if you are young and healthy and you don't think the risk of myocarditis or whatever other side effects there potentially could be is higher than COVID, then then the risk of getting COVID or the side effects of COVID, then you shouldn't get it. I don't think there's a reason why everyone in a population should get a medical treatment like that. Like if it was 100% effective and it didn't cause the side effects that it did, then it'd be a very different story.
I think that it's a dream world to think that we can develop a vaccine that's 100% effective with no side effects in the span of a year to actually deal with a worldwide pandemic.
I agree
that's, causing disruption throughout the world. And I think from the level of death that we've seen, there is not an underreporting, there is not an overreporting of COVID-19 deaths. If anything, there's an underreporting, and so I think a mandate of a vaccine probably would have dealt with those numbers a lot better than not doing it, which we did.
Great debate.
Honestly,
fuck you.
I really enjoy when you guys get into discussions because it really does bring a lot of new information to the board. And do
you feel like you've learned something, Alex?
No, absolutely not. It's gone in one ear. I've comprehended it and then right out the other side. Good.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Cole.
This has been the Null Thought Discourse.
You're not welcome. Fuck you guys. I hate you all.
Perfect.
Liberal scum.
I would honestly like to do this again sometime on like some, because we often talk about like a lot of topical events on the podcast. And so it's like there's going to be a lot of opinions to be had here.
We need more conservative opinions. We don't have any.
Yeah. I mean, you can see it a lot. It's just like from what I can like feel and understand, you are a very individualistic person, where that you mostly hold close to your more like your personal ties, and that's what you hold accountability on, rather than just like more distant interactions.
Yeah, I don't hold any of my ideas as sacred or anything like that. If an idea is wrong or I think it's wrong, I'm gonna drop it.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't hold any ideas.
Yeah, that's 100% respectable.
I don't have any ideas at all.
I only say the last thing that I've heard in 24 hours.
I'm just like Joe Rogan.
Thanks for.
I just heard Anthony talk, so I'm gonna be liberal, I guess. Or is that? Are you liberal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Broadly liberal.
So I'll be liberal. I'm liberal now.
Let's go.
Last person.
See you next week. Or I'm not going to make any promises, but
that was Zane/Jamie. Jamie.
Anthony. Me.
And I'm Alex.
And I'm Cole. And I got a book coming out. No, I'm kidding.
No biggie.
All right. See you guys.